weeks apart rank.
Yeah.
And that was where I put my hopes on कि हाँ भाई अमित तू यहाँ तक जा सकता है. तो let's not give up right now.
Hi guys, welcome back to NEET PG Insights. Today we have with us AIR97 and my close friend Dr. Amit Dashputra. First of all, congratulations on that amazing rank. And today we're going to talk to him about his NEET prep. So glad to have you here, Amit.
Thank you, thanks a lot.
So I'll just begin by asking that when did you start preparing for this exam?
I started preparing when my internship started in March 2020.
Okay. And how was preparing for your college exams different from this NEET preparation?
College exams had a lot of theory component involved. So reading textbooks was the main focus for theory exams, seeing previous year's questions. The major thing that changed was the focus was solely on notes.
Okay.
So notes ही पढ़ना है, MCQ solve करने हैं. That was the major difference.
Nice. And so you said that you started preparing during your internship year. So is there something that you did to manage internship and studies together?
During heavy postings, I felt कि जैसा मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ, it's nowhere that can get me to score NEET. But then I realized कि everybody is going to have heavy duties.
Right.
So why not make the most of it? So I had as a rough thumb rule that after my studies, I'm going to count sleep for 6 to 7 hours. बाकी सब खाना पीना 2-3 hours, and whatever remaining time is I'll study.
Okay.
But it failed miserably. In retrospect, if I managed to get 2 to 4 hours of focused study even after internship, I think that was good enough for me.
Okay. And so if you know the why of doing something, the how of doing it is easy to figure out. So what were your key motivations going into this exam?
Key motivations going into this exam? I decided that I want to settle in India.
Okay.
And MBBS degree was clearly not enough to make me feel confident about my medical knowledge and practice.
Right.
So I decided to go ahead with post-graduation in India. And regards to motivation to perform well in the exam, I just thought that the head of departments and cream of the nation is working in good ranking colleges.
Yeah.
So that was my goal. यार ये जो लोग जैसा काम कर रहे हैं ना, I want to learn from them. I want to be under their guidance.
Right.
So that was the reason that I wanted to do well in this exam.
Nice. And so what was your overall approach to the preparation of this exam? Like what targets did you set for yourself?
For marks and rank, I did not have any target for that, because if I had decided कि मुझे ये rank करना है, then I would have been bogged down by the pressure.
Right.
I just decided that let's see what best I can do. There is no target for a rank. I just decided कि एक question आएगा वो answer करना है, and then we'll move on.
Okay, so answering that question in the best possible way and building on that and getting as many correct questions as possible.
Yeah, that's the thing. And one more strategy that I liked during my final MBBS preparations is, if I was reading a topic and a random study related doubt comes to my mind, then rather than postponing it, I would look it up then and there. So if I'm reading notes and I remember something from the textbook, I'll just look it up and add it to my notes and then move on.
Okay.
So if I know that I don't know this topic, I'll add it there, Google search it then and there.
Right.
So that helped me to discover the areas where my brain is logically making connections.
Okay.
So yeah, that was it.
Yeah, and throughout the preparation, were there any things that kept you going through the process? Were there any things that you did daily that helped you de-stress or something?
In terms of de-stress, I'd say the first thing that is my home. The second place is my work.
Yeah.
And for studies, most of the time, first place and second place is both the study table only. So having a third place, which is someplace other than home and studies, that was cycling for me, or playing guitar, or just having fun with friends.
Right.
That was the third place I enjoyed.
And so one thing that I wanted to know was that there are some topics that are very tough to remember. Everyone faces that. So how did you deal with those? How did you deal with tough to remember topics?
First thing that comes to my mind, and making sense out of that random association. Because whenever I read a tough topic, my brain is going to make a random connection, and that is going to be automatic.
Right.
to make that automatic thought useful into a story or physically associating with how my house is laid. So if I enter and the first thing in the crepe cycle is on my sofa, then the next thing is going to be in my dining hall.
Like that.
So when I'm physically walking through my house, I'm never going to forget it. And that helps me add stuff of crepe cycle to it and remember easily.
Okay.
So that was one place.
Like a mind castle.
Yeah.
Okay. And shifting to the overall topic of like grand tests. So how often did you give grand tests?
Initially, I just gave one grand test to set a baseline. And after that, I just could not gather enough courage to give grand tests the way my peers were giving. So I ended up deciding that I'm going to give one grand test after every revision or so. So I did that. And towards the end, that amounted to somewhere between once to twice in a month, once in 7 to 10 days towards the end.
Okay.
So that is how I often give grand tests.
And how did you analyze your performance in these grand tests?
For grand test, once I had decided that this is the grand test that I'm going to prepare for, it does not matter if the exam is going to get postponed or not, because there was a lot of uncertain times during the preparation.
Right.
So my target was the grand test, irrespective of if the exam is getting cancelled.
Right.
And if I have decided to see the score, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to see the score only when the discussion is out.
Right.
For me, seeing marks and not seeing the discussion was a recipe for disaster. I felt so hopeless कि मैं marks देख रहा हूँ, but don't know where I went wrong, where I've gone wrong.
Right.
So that was one point, that I'm going to see discussion with marks, not without that. And I made two separate columns. One was questions wrong from notes, and one was questions wrong from where I just lacked focus. I knew कि क्या है basically.
Like focus during the exam.
Exactly. So focus चाहिए था and notes से wrong थे. So if it's wrong from notes, I know I have to read notes. That's then and there. If it was wrong because of focus, then I tended to invest more in my lifestyle. And towards the end, I realized कि ये area में काफी wrong हो रहा है because of lack of focus. So I made sure I am solving MCQs in the duration of exam.
Right.
I am sleeping regularly. I am doing some stretching, light stretching, meditation, so that I can get in the zone. My body can get used to solving each MCQ with equal enthusiasm across the 3.5 hours.
Right. And can you just give us an estimate of, like, out of 200 questions, how many questions did you discover were because of lack of focus during the exam? Like, you could have just solved them because of being calm or something like that.
10 questions.
Okay.
And knowing that I have made a mistake of 5 to 10 questions from notes and 5 to 10 questions wrong because of focus. So knowledge to tha mere paas, but I just didn't have enough focus. And that comes out to be 15 to 20 questions.
Right.
And when I see if I had those 15-20 questions correct, I would have had such a miles apart rank.
Yeah.
And that was where I put my hopes on कि हाँ भाई अमित तू यहाँ तक जा सकता है. So let's not give up right now.
That's amazing. And so what was the most important takeaway from these tests for you? Like,
takeaway wise, I made sure that I'm not going to look at my rank, because my rank rarely ever got above 3000. Most of the time I was underperforming as compared to my peers, and a rank around 10,000 is hopeless to see कि अरे मैं ये rank ला रहा हूँ तो फिर मुझे क्या ही seat मिलने वाला है. So I ultimately resorted to what I can correct. I can correct the question from notes, I can correct the question from focus. ये questions ये areas पे focus करना है. Let's set a target for the next CBT and forget about when the exam is going to happen.
okay.
So going all in for the CBT was my takeaway for the next cycle.
And then you said that the classification of the incorrect questions was also an important thing that you used to learn after every GP. कि कितने notes से गलत थे and कितने just because of lack of focus.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention the third part. Questions which are wrong, not from notes, not out of focus. They are just new random topics.
Okay.
So I made sure that I am not stressing too much on those wrong topics. क्योंकि अगर notes के भी बाहर है, तो I can't do anything about it. I just have to add it to my notes and move on. Right. Once they are in notes, I'll make sure I don't repeat that mistake again. But fussing over 10 question गलत हो गए and ये तो notes में था ही नहीं is feeling helpless. Right. So taking that aside.
And how did you deal with stress throughout the preparation?
Stress. I had a notion that whenever I'm preparing for an exam or an event like practical exams or final exams, I don't want to increase my preparation towards the last few weeks, because if I accelerate towards the end, I'm going to get so stressful कि इतना कम time and इतना सब कुछ करना है.
Right.
So I made sure that I put up initially high bars and then make sure that I sailed in consistency. So if I'm reading for 5 hours, 5 months before the exam, I'm going to read 5 hours before the last week, in the last week of the exam also.
Right.
So I made sure that I am maintaining that consistency irrespective of outside fluctuations to deal with the stress.
And what about like the stress of competition? For me, for example, I noticed that, you know, if I'm on any social media platform that is discussing topics related to NEET and all, it generally gave me this sense of competing in a very wide arena, and that kind of put a lot of pressure on me. So how did you deal with those aspects?
Yeah, I had this horrible feeling whenever I talked to my peers, because most of them were way ahead of me in terms of studies. So I tried to separate a competitive zone and a learning zone. In the learning zone, I'm not afraid to make mistakes. ठीक है, मैं गलत हुआ, I'll ask, I'll grow. And in the competitive zone, I'll try to put out the best of myself. So for me, the competitive zone was CBTs, grand tests. कि ये time पे I'm going to give all out whatever I have.
Right.
And in the learning zone, I wanted to be as comfortable as possible. So I decided initially कि हाँ learning zone है ना, I'm going to study alone only. तो if I'm going to study alone, तो ऐसा saturation सा आ गया. If I'm studying in groups, तो वो competitiveness वापस inside आ रहा था. I eventually found the balance with 1 or 2 study buddies, companions whom I would talk intermittently and say कि क्या चल रहा है. Studies were irrespective. Right. Just to get in touch.
So you were okay with discussing things that you did not know with them and like accepting your...
So that was my comfort zone. I was not afraid to make mistakes in that time.
Okay. And did you face any difficulties along the way, and like how was your emotional journey throughout the whole thing?
When internship had ended in March or April 2021, after the exam got postponed again, I thought कि चल अभी तो बहुत time है, अभी तो निकाल लेंगे. And
because internship was very chaotic as such, तो
मतलब now I have time, so what is stopping me now? I started कि I'm now अभी तो निकाल लेंगे. And I just could not perform. मतलब I don't know what happened. I thought I was studying, but I was nowhere close to my peers, and I thought कि जो ego में I was कि हाँ मैं तो निकाल ही लूँगा. That was shattered. मतलब ऐसा लगा कि नहीं हो रहा है, अभी तो नहीं होने वाला है. And then it was just like कि ठीक है अभी what can I do? I just made a timetable and said at the end of the day, if I did this timetable, even if I failed, I'll be okay. Okay. So I put my faith in a timetable and I just
your
went.
Your
goal
was just to follow the daily timetable and.
Yeah, मतलब ऐसा. I just thought कि looking back, what would I have done to feel satisfied? I just wrote down in the timetable. I made sure that it had some times of fun. It had some time of talking to friends, masti, a balanced way, irrespective of how the exam turned out to be. Okay. And like कि चलो बस ये करते हैं. Let's see how it happened. Fortunately, that to be good.
And do you have any practical tips for people who are preparing for NEET PG 2022?
I did not use iPad notes or notes on tab. I had physical notebooks. Okay. So it used to take a lot of time to flip through notes. So adding flags to the notes so that I can just pick it up, see, open and close. That saved my time. And having my phone or any other distraction at least 15 seconds away from me. Right. So 15 seconds is a thumb rule. And if the phone is 15 seconds away from me, I'm just out of sheer laziness, I'm not going to pick up that phone. Yeah. So that was one thing. And one more thing that I wanted to add is whenever I bookmarked in Marrow custom modules, if I'm revising the modules and I go on the last page, so for example, if I have 1000 bookmarks starting from 950 to 1000, if I find a question which I want to re-put in the bookmarks, which I have not yet memorized, so I'll just unbookmark and rebookmark it again.
It comes.
Yeah, after doing that, going back to the home page, it comes in the first place. So now again, if I start from 950 to 1000, it's going to give a different set of MCQs. Right. So that helped me in the Marrow custom
like
bookmarks.
Yeah. And so a common problem that I faced is that we allot a certain time for a subject, and then usually it's very difficult to cover that subject in that much given time. So what is to be done if such a thing happens?
I'd say stick to the timetable. If the topic is exceeded time limit, move on.
Okay.
Then in the next revision, I'll start with the weakest topics that are available.
Okay. And if there was one thing that you would want a NEET PG aspirant to know, what would that be?
Don't study one day before the exam. I've almost worked for 6 years, or if you count the schooling before that also, everything, all my knowledge, all my prowess is ultimately boiling down to those 3.5 hours. And the best thing that I can do one day before the exam is give my mind and body rest. So I am absolutely against revising something on the last moment कि चल अरे वही देख लेते हैं ना, because even if I remember one fact and say कि अरे ये तो याद नहीं आ रहा है, so that can have such a snowball effect and put my confidence down that I don't want any of that. I ended up watching Padosam one day before the exam and decided कि भाई अभी तो जो होगा देख लेंगे.
And just to end the interview, like, what are your future goals and aspirations?
I am planning to take general surgery residency.
Okay.
And that is the goal for the next 3 years. I am interested in pursuing medical device innovations. Something on that lines. If I get an opportunity, I'll definitely indulge.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, and being able to put all of this knowledge at some place where it's not just competition amongst doctors, like a place which really needs these interventions.
Right.
Rural or any crisis-stricken areas.
That's amazing. It was very nice talking to you, Amit. And we hope to have you on this channel again whenever our NEET aspirants need more help.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm honored. Hey, Preksha, are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, abhi